'Tis the 24th day of April 2025. Welcome to the Lord Aboga TV newspaper review. Straight away we go on to the Standard, whereby the main headline is that Ruto's loan games. Now, President William Samoei Ruto is in China for a state visit and is there sealing deals left, right, and center. Now, the funny thing, but the good thing of it so far, President William Ruto has sealed a deal of Kenya shillings 143 billion that investors will be coming to invest in Kenya in different sectors. But you know, President William Samoei Ruto is just but a funny lot. When he's in East, he speaks good and very healthy things about the East. When he goes to West, he speaks very wealthy and very good things about the West. You see, that is a very serious gamble. And as things goes by, it might hit a dead rock sometime to come in future. Because yesterday, President William Samoei Ruto, while addressing students in a certain university in China, he spoke very healthily about China and the East. But unfortunately, he spoke and correcting the misfortunes that the IMF and World Bank has been doing.
Will have to flow to where the workforce is. On the United Nations and the UN Security Council, no other circumstance other than the post-war situation would have made the current structure of the UN, and more particularly, the UN Security Council, and that is the 5 permanent members with individual powers, an acceptable peace and security architecture. The Security Council, once a beacon of peace and diplomacy, now has one permanent member invading one country, while another member takes sides in conflict, in direct contradiction to the Council's own resolutions. Yet today, the permanent members live in denial and resist reform, even as the Security Council becomes less and less legitimate and its relevance is being put to question. The Bretton Woods institutions recently celebrated their 80th anniversary. 80 years ago, we all know 2/3 of the world's nations did not exist as states when this architecture came into being. The IMF was established to buttress the gold standard, fixed exchange rate system, a system that collapsed 50 years ago. The World Bank, on the other hand, was established to rebuild Europe, an assignment now very well overtaken by events. At the heart of the Bretton Woods institution is a fundamental issue. These are shareholder institutions. At the time they were formed, the shareholders were also the primary stakeholders and beneficiaries. Both the World Bank and IMF have evolved into development finance institutions, but the ownership and power remains with the wealthy countries that they no longer serve. The interests of the shareholders and stakeholders and beneficiaries are at great variance almost all the time. This anomaly became apparently glaring during the IMF SDR issuance, where 64% of allocations ended up in wealthy countries that did not need liquidity support. The crisis is perhaps the most urgent and existential challenge of our time. Africa, despite contributing the least to global emissions, bear the greatest burden through floods, droughts, displacement, and food insecurity. We have scientific consensus that these extreme weather events are human-induced. But even if it were otherwise, Decarbonization of the economy is progress in its own right. Conservation of nature and clean air are desirable ends in and of themselves. But 30 COP conferences later, national interests continue to stand in the way of global collective action, notwithstanding the fact that the atmosphere has no national boundaries. We envision a digital future that is Kenya in location, Africa in identity, and global in impact. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenya and China are not merely trade partners. We are co-architects of a new world order, one that is fair, inclusive, and sustainable. Let us measure our success not in GDP growth or trade volumes, but in how many lives we uplift, how many futures we secure, and how much dignity we restore. This visit, as the first African state visit to China this year, mirrors my 2024 visit to the United States, the first African state visit there in 15 years. Perhaps, symbolically, Kenya can serve as a bridge between East and West, North and South, in an era of deepening geopolitical tensions.
You see, President William Samoei Ruto is just but like a normal city boyfriend. When he meets this girl, he talks very healthy and very good about her and promises how he's going to marry her and all those good stuffs. Wherever he meets another girl, with the aim of that one thing that you know, he speaks also very healthy and gives disadvantage of the other. And this is one person that can also give disadvantages of the current wife that he is staying with. Now, President William Ruto said that IMF was making day in, day out mistakes, and he also faulted the United Nations Security Council, that they are the ones who always instigate wars and they come to try to neutralize the war after things have gone astray. That is President William Samoei Ruto for you. You see, when he is in China, he speaks very bad about China allies. And when he goes to the United States or to the West, he speaks very healthy about the West. And he speaks very negative about China. Now, there is where we say President Ruto loan games. And the unfortunate part of it, President William Ruto was faulting IMF and World Bank when his finance cabinet secretary is in the United States of America for an IMF meeting. Now we don't understand where President William Samoei Ruto lies. Is he going to be doing transactions with China, or he's going to do transactions with the West? Because as it stands from President William Ruto's yesterday's university address, it is like he's breaking bridges with the West, of which, as a statesman and as a president of an ailing African state, you are not supposed to break any bridge that is ahead of you. That is just but my opinion. Because when he hits rock bottom, he'll again run to the West for help. And you see, IMF has been very instrumental in Africa economies. Not only but Kenya, but different economies. It has been so instrumental. But it seems like President William Samoei Ruto is very much determined to break those bridges, which is a very sad state of affairs. And as today he'll be meeting the China president, let us see how it is going to come out. Again, on the standard, among the headlines, Obado admits affair impregnating Sharon. You can remember the Obado Sharon case murder is ongoing, and Obado was put onto defense, and former Migori Governor Okoth Obado admitted to be having an affair with the late Sharon, who was brutally murdered in some place in Migori County.
I agreed that we'll be channeling my assistance through model. And that was being done, even though we had terminated the relationship, but I was still assisting.
In a surprising revelation, the former governor also detailed a private boardroom meeting where he found his wife, a journalist identified as XYZ, and a man named Lawrence Muller. His wife offered to give Sharon one of their houses, a gesture he declined, insisting he had no intention of marrying a second wife.
Sharon's proposal.
He advised instead that he will support Sharon by buying her land in Homa Bay and building her a house. However, the challenge was that Sharon wanted a house in either Kisumu or Nairobi.
So I asked Mola to go and relay to her that it would be much more easier for her to be settled around Homa Bay, not in town, but just around Homa Bay. And even a proposal of buying land and building maybe a house of 3-bedroom house that would cost around 3 million.
According to Obado, Sharon agreed to move into a rental house while waiting for a house to be built, a transition that she was reportedly comfortable with.
My lady, there was a proposal that was brought to me by Moses to move from my mother's house as we await for the house that was to be constructed. That she had now accepted.
He further revealed that Sharon's pregnancy-related health issues were discussed, and he promised to support her through Mola. He also arranged for her to have a medical cover.
It's coming from who? From me, of course. From you to Sharon. Yeah.
Obado see the fate and how Obado will convince the court that he was not responsible of Sharon's murder. That is up for the Standard. Let us now quickly move to the Daily Nation, whereby the headline is "Family of 9 burnt to death in Landro." That was a very sad state of affairs, whereby someplace in Siaya County, family of 9, that is father, mother, and 7 kids, were burnt into ashes because of a land dispute. It is believed that the land dispute was involving the family and their immediate neighbor. The immediate neighbor had constructed onto the deceased family, the deceased family's land. And the issue went to court, and it was ruled that the neighbor who had invaded the deceased land to move away from that land. But unfortunately, it is believed like it is the very neighbor who orchestrated an arson attack to the family of 9. That is a very sad state of affairs. It wouldn't have gone that extent. Now you see the villagers and the neighbors had to retaliate, and they also burnt the house and the belongings of the neighbor who is the most suspected of the arson attack.
Desperate attempts to raise.
Litokea sasa watoto walikuwa wanalia na juu walikuwa wamewe. Sasa moto iliwazidi na wote wakakufa. Kubwa wao alikuwa form 4 candidate na ni msichana.
Hawa watu ambao wamekufa mpaka watoto, kuna mpaka mtoto wa miezi 6. Sijui ni deni gani ambaye amekuwa nayo, ndio walikuwa na wadai mpaka akaona tu aweze kuteketeza mpaka innocent people, watoto ambao hawawezi kujitetea.
Sasa nashindwa kitu kile kimeendelea katika hili jamii. Yaani watu wa area hii ni jamii ya Kamuku. Kwa sababu gani mmetufanyia hii yote?
The man of the home aged for
alipewa shamba kiasi kidogo, lakini alienda akachukua shamba kubwa eka karibu 2. Sasa wamekuwa na mzozo, wakienda kotini kila wakati, akaambiwa kuwa atahama katika ile shamba baada ya kumaliza ile kesi.
A court order had been issued to evict the family from the land.
Polisi wamekuwa wanakuja hapa wakielezwa kuwa watimize vile walikuwa wameagizwa wahamishe huyo jamaa, na amekataa.
Wenye walikuwa washukiwa wangefaa kuhamishwa on Thursday ambapo itakuwa kesho, lakini tukio ikafanyika on Tuesday.
Authorities confirmed that one suspect has been taken into custody in connection with the attack. In a retaliatory move, enraged residents descended on the suspect's home, setting both the main house and surrounding farm structures ablaze.
Ukweli ni kwamba kibui imepatikana hapo na kibui ya petroli, na hiyo ni thibitisho kubwa kabisa. Hiyo ni exhibit.
These are two wrongs whereby there is a loss of property there is loss of lives from the two parties, and I think the investigations agencies will bring this matter into book, and we know who orchestrated the loss of these 9 lives. It is a very sad state of affairs. I think that is up for today and to our newspaper review. This is the Lord Abwaga TV. Remember to subscribe and to our YouTube channel at Lord Abwaga TV. Bye.